Beneath the sky again. 8 people lay in a pile of straw carried in the bed of a large hay wagon as it bumped down a country road. Not exactly shoulder to shoulder, some chins pointing skyward, some resting on elbows. The wagon's wheels creaked and clinked. After camping in the mouth of the cave for a few hours, they walked out of the bog and made their way to the fields by the next morning. With a stroke of luck, they came across the shepherd boy and his grandfather, who were quite pleased to offer the weary warriors a ride. The sun was shining, warm and gold. Hild was singing something lightly, the song coming and going like a gentle breeze. The words were foreign to the rest, but the rhyming syllables and soft sounds of her voice was soothing and welcome. Sparrow turned to Hamish and gave him a nudge. Hamish opened his eyes. "The monster spoke the truth about the water," said Sparrow. "Humph." Hamish grunted and shut his eyes again. "I suppose it did, this time. So the fell are capable of more than pure evil. I know that, Sparrow. However, do you think it would have spared us if the tables were turned?" "Probably not. But we are humans," said Sparrow. Hamish returned. "You and I? Sure." He gestured toward Brune and Bowen. "But those two?" Brune pulled on his black beard and guffawed. Bowen shouted, "Oh, come now, I'm wounded!" and laughter spread among them. They arrived at Greybrook by the early afternoon. Farno was waving excitedly. "Welcome home!" He came up and offered a hand to Bowen, who was struggling to get down from the wagon with his wounded leg. "My ladies, we've been rescued. A king's knight is here, and that wretched regent was an impostor. Would you believe it? The king sent the knight and his men-at-arms, but never any regent. That foul man left before the knight even arrived. The ne'er-do-well must have been terrified of the thought of facing a sword-sworn knight." "I do believe that," said Vagelin as she pulled bits of straw from the wagon out of her hair. Ventessa asked, "The horses?" Farno answered, "All made it back safely last night." He turned back to Vague. "Thank you for writing that letter. Very clever to pin it to the saddle. We've been so worried." His eyes fell upon the sword that rested on her hip. "I take it that you did not find Lord Volgut." Vagelin and Ventessa looked at each other for a long moment before Vagelin replied, "He is gone, Farno." The servant wiped a tear from his eye. Ventessa put her hand on his shoulder. "That makes my sister the mistress of this keep, Lady of Greybrook." "Yes, it does," Farno agreed. He managed a smile for her. "It does indeed," said Benarubius as he emerged from the keep. "And I am very sorry for your loss." The old man shuffled over to Bowen and looked over the bandages on Bowen's leg. He clicked his tongue and shook his head. "Right, let's get you inside." Hamish was gathering up his armor, which he had removed while traveling. He asked Farno, "Does this sworn blade have a name?" Farno opened his mouth, but someone else answered. "He does." The man who answered stood tall under the portcullis. He was in full shining armor, a cape of mink draped over his shoulders. "I am Sir Gilbert Reginald." "Reginald," said Hamish, and his jaw clenched involuntarily. "Sir Reginald," the knight corrected. "In the king's service, and I recognize you lapsed from the battle at Burhan. You are the Duke's sellswords." He said the last word with venom. He looked over them and made an ugly face. His eyes rested on Sparrow. "Didn't you used to be a knight? The court does not look fondly on deserter dogs. Mayhaps I should run you through." "I have the king's pardon." Sparrow was unshaken. "But you're welcome to try." "Enough of this," Hamish demanded. "We'll have our pay and be off." "Yes, do go," said the knight. He turned to Ventessa and Vagelin. "You are the daughters? You're filthy. I chased off the Pretender Regent for you while you've been romping about with these rogues. You're clearly not fit to rule here. The king will assign a proper regent, I'm sure." "Not so fast," Vagelin snapped at him. "I am the lady of this house, and I'll be deciding who stays and who leaves." Reginald made to speak, but was silenced as Ventessa, standing just behind the right shoulder of Vagelin, crossed her arms and leveled a glare at the man that could melt ice. Vagelin went on. "You come into my home uninvited and insult my guests. You make wild assumptions. You're rude, sir. In fact, you are the one who is leaving." Reginald was dumbfounded. "But well..." His face turned red. "Blast you all, then!" He turned and called back into the keep. "We're leaving this muckhole at once!" As they watched Sir Reginald and his retinue leave, Zaldivar commented, "That man really is a knob." "Such language!" Hild scolded, and she punched his shoulder. He grinned. "Come," Vagelin said to them all. "Let us get cleaned up and find something to eat, shall we?" She looked up at the sky. It was wide and deep blue. Dine in, say, an hour, and this time we won't be eating in the servants' room." Agreeing, they filed in past her, dirty, bone-tired, and ravenously hungry. Hamish, last in line, paused and stepped closer to her. He spoke softly. "You didn't have to cast him out on our account. I'd hate to see you make an enemy of a man like that." "What is it you are all so fond of saying?" Vagelin put her hand on his chest, tilted her head, and grinned. "Oh, yes, live by the sword." He laughed a little. "M'lady, it's just that—" Interrupting him, she said, "It doesn't really matter who one's enemies are, you see, as long as one has the right allies." She stood on her toes and pecked him on his cheek before turning to stride off into the keep.